All hands, this is James Thomas. Effective immediately, command of Starship Mariah has been transferred to High Admiral Tate until further notice. Thomas out.
The bridge crew couldn't believe it either, though they would blindly follow my orders. Now they would do so for Tate. I only hoped her plans were not as gruesome as my mind thought them to be. Carson stood to her left, ready to occupy the executive chair on a nearby platform. The captain's chair sat raised in the center of the room, surrounded by all departments. I watched Tate snuggle down into it and cross her legs, a little too comfortable in the seat of power. She turned to me and smiled. I did not return it. There was something going on here, and I did not like its smell. Tea Navari stepped into the bridge from the rear turbolift and took his place against the rear wall where his console stood.
Ah, Ensign Navari. Good to have you back.
The Admiral turned her attention to Ensign Adrian Ali.
Please hail Centauri Space Control that we are prepared to get underway.
Yes, ma'am,
he said, looking over at me for my approval. I nodded.
Orbital Control, this is USS Mariah, requesting permission to leave orbit.
Mariah, this is Orbital Control. Permission to depart is granted. Airspace is clear. You are free to navigate.
Roger, Control.
Oh, I almost forgot. Captain, the command codes, please.
I sighed, hoping she would have missed that advantage.
Computer, release all command codes to High Admiral Catherine Tate, authorization Thomas, Pi Omega.
Command transfer complete. Starship Mariah is now under the command of High Admiral Tate.
My stomach wrenched again. I couldn't believe it. I was almost stripped of my rank entirely as I watched my ship be taken from my hands. And I just handed it over. Tate turned back to the forward viewer.
Ensign Elite, please set course for 229 Mark 001.
Ma'am, that will take us on a direct course for the twin suns at the center of the system.
I'm perfectly aware of that, Adrian. Now follow my orders, or I will select someone who will.
Ensign Ali was flushed.
Of course, ma'am.
Yellow alert. Warp 1, engage.
Warp 1 achieved. In about 5 minutes, the hull will begin to cook if we don't alter course.
When you've reached 100,000 kilometers, drop the ship from warp.
Admiral, the Mariah will not be able to withstand this kind of pressure. The ship is divided into 3 segments to enable multivac. The gravitational forces will overstress the couplings and the ship will come apart.
Then we must increase power to structural integrity. Ops, carry out my orders.
Ma'am, that won't buy us but a few seconds. What are your intentions?
Commander Nicholas Koberstein entered the bridge, his phaser in its holster. Tate turned to see him, the surprised look on his face when he witnessed the bright pulsars coming into range. Then returned to me.
My intentions are not to be disclosed to you, nor any other individual on this ship.
With all due respect, ma'am, are you crazy?
All the expression in Tate's face drained away.
Your sarcasm is not winning my patience, Captain Thomas. If you wish to remain a captain, you will cease it, and cease it now.
It isn't sarcasm, ma'am. It's a grave concern for my ship and the welfare of her crew, which you should cherish just as much as I.
Tate did not respond. She simply sat down back in her chair and stared ahead at the suns, now glowing bright with an orange blaze.
Dropping into full impulse.
Avari turned to Tate.
Hull temperatures are exceeding tolerance levels, ma'am. We won't be able to remain here for very much longer.
I don't know how long I can maintain this course. She's getting sluggish, Admiral.
Very well, remain on course.
I scanned the bridge. Every officer awaited my instructions. I could still see it. Lieutenant Commander Ian Korpanova, my tactical chief, was extremely upset. I could see it clearly on his face, no clearer than if he had written it across his forehead. As was Nicholas Koberstein, the attaché of Admiral Tate. This confused me. My helmsman, Adrian Ali, was as frustrated and confused as everyone else. Carson, now occupying Sai's chair, was obviously prepared for this change of course, but Nick was caught unawares.
Hi, Admiral.
He said. Tate swiveled to meet him at the rear of the bridge.
Yes, Commander?
I would appreciate information on this course of action. Why are we this close to Centauri's twin suns?
It is none of your concern, Nicholas.
No, but it is mine, and I will not blindly allow you to take advantage of your position.
Captain, my patience with you is wearing thinner. I very much suggest you keep your comments to yourself before I strip you of every pip you prize on that uniform.
I would gladly sacrifice my rank to accommodate the safety of my crew, Admiral. And if you do not make it a priority of yours, I will relieve you and restrict you to quarters. I don't care what the Federation Council has to say,
I said. Tate snapped her fingers, only once, and immediately Carson came toward me with hand clamps.
Sit down, Captain.
He pointed to the railing that encircled the bridge's command area, separating it from the other stations.
Now, sir.
I complied, albeit slowly, crouching down next to the rail. He grabbed my arms and fed one through a metal support, then clamped my hands together with the security device.
Your brother misses you, Kieran.
Be quiet.
He turned to Tate, who looked down at me as if I were some sort of insect.
Such a pity, Captain. I had hoped you would not witness your ship's greatest moment on your knees.
This ship's greatest moment will be its last.
I shot back. I turned to Sai, who was not far from joining me herself. I looked her straight in the eyes and shook my head,
He may be right, Admiral.
said Avari.
Temperature has now exceeded the maximum tolerance levels. The core will depressurize and the hull will begin to melt if we do not leave now.
Ali turned to face Tate.
The gravimetric shears are too much for the impulse engines. I strongly recommend we alter our heading.
Remain on course.
You are a fool. That is a binary star group, and you are treating them like a couple of circus hoops.
I'm well aware of what this stellar formation is, Captain. Not to worry.
Not to worry?
I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. Without warning, the turbolift opened at the rear of the bridge and entered the most unexpected sight I could imagine. It was Molly, my daughter. Tate turned to face her.
Get that child off my bridge.
As Molly began to be pulled out, she whispered into my thoughts.
May you walk in the light of God, Dad. Hold strong.
One of my bridge officers escorted her out, and I smiled softly to myself. Then my smile faded. I was no longer going to go through more of this. I was going to regain my ship.
I've had enough. Ensign Ali, come about 180. That is a direct order from your captain.
With pleasure.
If you turn this ship around, you'll be snapped back so fast in a court-martial you won't stand for a week. Remain on course. I am your commanding officer now.
Do it, Adrian. Over 100 lives depend on it.
Yes, sir.
Carson stepped forward, pulling out a concealed pulse phaser, and fired on Ali.
You monster!
Shouted Sai. Ian pulled out a phaser from his console. Several other officers stood poised to attack him,
Stand down immediately, or I'll shoot you all like dogs.
yelled Carson. Sai hurried over to Adrian, checked his pulse, and looked up to me. He was alive. Avari turned back to his display.
Graviton waves are now beginning to contort the ship.
The Mariah began to shudder softly, the viewer now brighter than I'd ever seen it before. Tate was still in my chair.
Carson, take the helm. They should be appearing soon. Prepare the multi-vector assault mode.
Wait a minute. Who should be appearing?
Tate glanced at me, then quickly back toward the viewer. All of a sudden, she pointed.
There.
From beyond what seemed our space-time continuum, a glow of gorgeous blue light pulled some sort of spacefaring object into our realm. Before I could make it out, it was gone from view, and apparently from sensors as well,
I can't detect them, ma'am.
said Carson.
Tate to engineering. Commander Tarkin, stabilize the warp field and prepare for massive weapons burst. Carson, uplink the tactical readouts to your...
The vessel was knocked out of impulse and into a spiral by some unseen force. Sounds of violent contortion resonated through the bulkheads.
Warning. Structural integrity breached on Deck 10. Containment fields attempting to compensate.
Tate, you better get this ship out of here.
You are no longer in command, Thomas.
Koberstein could not believe his eyes. He proceeded toward me, looking as though he was going to unlock my wrist clamps, but was shot in the arm by Carson before he could do so.
Tate, stop this!
Carson pointed his weapon at me.
Do you wish to be next, Thomas?
Gladly.
Very well.
He looked like he was going to fire, but not before Koberstein sat up in between us, firing his phaser directly at the man, knocking him clear out of the chair and over the helm controls.
Computer, target any movement around the ship and fire at will.
Acknowledged.
But the ship was unable to gain a firing solution. All it could do was spiral closer toward the twin suns.
Warning. Structural integrity breached. Deck 1.
The door to the officer's lounge began to contort with increasing stress as the vacuum of space began to pull it beyond its threshold.
Everybody out! Clear the bridge now!
Warning. Multi-vec docking latches exceeding maximum tolerance. Uncontrolled separation in approximately 30 seconds. Containment fields have failed.
Sai began to approach me to separate me from the wrist clamps, but I wouldn't let her get close.
Get out of here right now! That is an order, bridge crew!
The door to the lounge was almost about to disappear into space. I knocked Nick out of his unconscious gaze.
Take Ensign Ali and go. That is an order.
He nodded in compliance, heading for one of the rear lifts. Many of the crew were gone, but still some lingered, unable to leave me behind.
Go!
great light of the suns poured into the bridge even more intently as some of the crew began to fly through the gap. I saw the looks on their faces as they tumbled into deep space. Kieran Davis began to tumble past me. I reached out for him and grasped his arm, feeding it through my shackles to hang on to his seemingly lifeless form. He awoke from the phaser blast, soon aware of what was happening. He desperately tried to maintain a grip on me, the air around us whipping around our bodies like towels blowing in a hurricane.
Hold on to me!
No, I won't make it!
Yes, you will! Don't let go!
What was left of the bridge crew had either made it out through the turbolifts or had been sucked into space. The pressure within my ears became intense as atmosphere on Deck 1 was quickly removed. I could barely remain conscious, let alone try to maintain Kieran's grasp. He looked up at me from the void of space and sunlight, and before I knew it, my sweat-filled palms could no longer hold on to him. He was sucked out of my arms, his legs knocking into the side of the bridge wall, tumbling into the ultimate void beyond. Hold strong, I thought, and then lost consciousness. Mariah suddenly broke free of the clamps that held the three pieces together. The gravitational stress began to tear into her hull, and unwillingly, she snapped into her three segments, careening into darkness.